ECSI fans, do you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as they're the best account on the platform. Head to the App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app.
Good afternoon/evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is our Closing Bell, our NFL NCAAF end of the week show with good friend and colleague Ron Marmolevsky, live from LA as I'm dark in Cape Cod as we're getting ready for another 2-3 inches of rain. I'm getting the arc out. I guess it's better rain than snow. Me and Ron talked backstage. We talked the last couple of days. We were going to put the big three, the coaching carousel, in the last 48 hours, now in 72 hours, where we were talking Pete Carroll, we were talking Nick Saban, we were talking Bill Belichick, and next thing you know, Patriots, Gerard Mayo, Nick Saban, and Alabama, now Kalen DeBoer, which, if my numbers are correct, 111-4 his last 115 games, something crazy like that. A great hire there. God, I love that guy. I was telling Ron backstage how I would have loved the Patriots even maybe for Kalen DeBoer, and then drafting Penix Jr. and maybe stealing Polk or one of their wide receivers in the second round. But before I bring Ron on, shout out to our men backstage, off on the weekend already, Evan Lewis and Joe Shea, and our proud sponsor and partnership, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded this app, please go to Google Play, wherever you download those apps. It's free. Start tracking your bets, your ROI, and start downloading some of the sports books and the free wagers, match play, et cetera, there. If you'd like to join the affiliate program, send WagerWire an email to affiliate@wagerwire.com. Tell them JD from ECSI sent you. Travis, Zach, that great team, staff, and community. It was a great time today at noon to 1 on Twitter Spaces with WagerWire. We look forward to doing many more of those. So without further ado, the true star of this show, I'm just throwing out the questions. He's got all the answers, Mr. Ron himself.
Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I feel here in sunny Southern California, I don't know what to say. I played tennis today. It was 37 degrees in the morning, and I shouldn't feel like that's cold, because everywhere else in the country is getting snow, and we're going to have a couple of football games that are really going to be in blizzard conditions. So maybe I should have just worn a t-shirt this morning for tennis.
T-shirt, headband, like John McEnroe back in the day, Mr. as my dad would say, Bijan Borg, Yvonne Lendl, and all those good names from the past that I know you're smiling with. Good friend, family member Billy Hewlin, Roll Tide, Jeffrey, as we've been talking for hours. The same with Marty Lowe about Alabama. What were they going to do? In the preview, in the intro, I talked about Pete Carroll, then Bill Belichick, and then Nick Saban. Actually, Nick Saban, then Bill Belichick. And word on the street, Ron, is that the Patriots were going to announce the release of Bill on Wednesday, and Bill called Bob up and says, please don't. It's going to be Nick Saban leaving Alabama. It's his day. I want to wait. And they waited till Thursday. Give me the thoughts of Pete, Bill, Nick, bing, bang, boom, before even we get to Mr. DeBoer going to Alabama.
A bad year for coaches that are 72 years old or going to turn 72. We have Pete Carroll, 72 years young, Nick Saban, pretty young at 72, and Bill Belichick in April, turning 72 years old. I kind of wrote up a thing for all three because it was fascinating how quickly all three came to fruition. And at least the first two were pretty surprising to me. It was out of the blue that Pete Carroll was going, that the silent ownership of the Allens, now Jody Allen, would make the decision and say, hey, despite two really, really good drafts, and despite the fact that you want to see this through. And Pete Carroll, I listened to his whole press conference. He was emotional. He didn't give up the job without a fight. His mantra was always compete, and that's what he did. And I know they want to keep him in terms of being part of the process, but I don't know what part of the process that's going to be. It was a surprise to me. And I think they just wanted somebody younger. They just wanted in Seattle a fresh approach. They saw this team as maybe 9-7, 9-8 isn't good enough. And I think it was in the process of building something. And I think they should have waited one more year. Now they're going to try to find an advisory role for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll even said, John Schneider's running the whole show now. He's going to be making the decisions. In the past, they were an inseparable team. I wanted to find something, a soundbite from John Schneider, but I haven't found anything in the last 48 hours. I think that Seattle's in a good place with the roster, but I'm curious whether or not this is Dan Quinn coming in. And if it's Dan Quinn, that's probably good for the development of the defense. I don't know what it means for Geno Smith. I don't know if they're going to develop their offense anymore. I mean, their drafts have been incredible in terms of how they planned at wide receiver, how they planned at offensive line, how they planned in the deep defense. But Pete Carroll's greatest strength, in my opinion, was how he taught players and they got better as the year went on. He was a great teacher of players. He made 5th round draft choices all pros. He made 2nd and 3rd round draft choices into 1st round draft choices. Did he make all the right in-game decisions? Not necessarily. But on Pete's behalf, I think he is one of the great teachers of the game, and his record in college and the NFL is among the best.
72 years young, and I love how you said that because that guy never ages, and I just hope to look like that if I get to 72. Go back to USC, go back to when he was here with New England. I know that rah, that mentality, that intensity doesn't usually bode well in the NFL. It does in college, but he was able to keep the locker room, keep the team in focus. The Super Bowl win against the Steelers, and should have obviously had the win against the Patriots. For some reason, the throw 1st and goal from the 3. Marshawn Lynch, if you handed it to him 4 times, he could have rolled in at some point. The interception by Butler. That's what I remember. But, as the years were progressing, they trade and let Russell go. In comes the resurgence, the rebirth of Geno Smith. 2 years ago, Ron, under over a 5.5, and it was the most played under in the history of the NFL. And not only do they shine, they go to the playoffs, obviously lose to the Niners. And this year, again, battling tooth and nail to the end. Looking back at the last 2 years, was it the rebirth and resurgence of Geno, and actually then the step back of Geno, and then insert Drew Lock?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize it was the most played under because I don't play very many overs, but Seattle was one of my overs that year. So I was on the lone bandwagon. All the people that I did the shows with said, "How can you be on Seattle?" I said, "Wait, you don't understand what's going on there. They just killed the draft. There's a small correlation there." Geno Smith, he wasn't going to be as good as those first 7 or 8 games we saw in 2022, but he wasn't going to be as bad as the last 7 or 8 when he was more interception prone. He's a middle of the pack quarterback. His ceiling is probably 14th best quarterback in the NFL, and where he fits is probably 20th, 22nd. He's a starter, but you're always looking over your shoulder if you're Geno Smith, if you're that kind of, just like Alex Smith, just like some of the other quarterbacks that we've seen get replaced over the years. They just killed the draft, and that's the sad part here, is that his offensive line was going to be better. His running back contingent is always strong. That's what Pete Carroll does well. He has the 3 wide receivers now that are in place. So it was just one of those things. I don't know if Geno Smith was going to be the quarterback of the future, and now we don't know at all whether or not they're going to move up to draft a quarterback, whether or not they're going to just stay put and draft a quarterback. There's 5 to 7 that could be developed. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round choice, so we know it can happen. I'm going to be fascinated by who they do. If it is Dan Quinn, I'm going to be fascinated by what happens with the rest of the coaching staff. I'm going to be fascinated by how the draft plays out and who's at quarterback for next year.
It's almost like a ready-made team to win, a turnkey operation. And when I'm hearing the name Dan Quinn, I think of defense. I think of now were they trying to go back to the 12th man, the Legion of Boom. As you said, they have crushed the drafts in the last 2 years. And I look at them offensively, a 2-headed monster with Kenneth Walker, with Charbonnet. I look at the wide receiving core, DK Metcalf. They drafted in Jigba. Tyler Lockett may be getting a little long in the tooth. So it's almost like if they go into the secondary market, there's the Baker Mayfields, there is the Kirk Cousins, there's a handful of quarterbacks that will be available, and then they go ahead and draft a quarterback in the draft. It's almost like, I know the West is tough with San Fran. The Rams aren't going anywhere. Arizona isn't a rebuilding process, but they already have their quarterback with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Geno Smith has a very team-friendly contract, especially since the incentives didn't kick in for 2024. So I would not be surprised, and I would probably endorse them drafting a 1st-round quarterback, either moving up or staying put, and let Geno still have the reins for 1 year.
We talked backstage, the power move would have been Kalen DeBoer. That would have been go draft Michael Penix Jr. and let's go have some fun. Breaking news in the last hour or so, Kalen DeBoer to Alabama. Steve Sarkisian, Texas stepped to the plate. Yesterday, it looked like Lanning was their man, and Phil Knight and Oregon and Nike stepped to the plate. Rumors of Norvell from FSU. Everyone was wondering, where was Lane Kiffin? In comes DeBoer. Talk about that move for Alabama.
Well, let me go back to the beginning on this one. There's a lot to say about Alabama. Let's talk about Nick Saban. And I think you set it up perfectly in the intro. Tired of the nil. He's tired of the grind. He said he started to feel his age this year. He coached the defense. He took a greater part in the defense. He's a defensive guy at heart, a defensive back guy at heart. And he started to put his weight into that. But there was so much going on. This wasn't his best unit as far as wide receivers. They had some quarterback issues. I know they got better in protecting the quarterback up until the semifinal playoff game, but you could tell that the offense wasn't kind of the offense that he wanted or had in the past few years. And then the energy it would take to run it back. The coaches nowadays, because this whole nil thing has come to fruition, coaches have to re-recruit their own players. It's not just enough that they are recruiting the Alabama name to people on the outside, but everybody on the Alabama roster, or any roster in college football for that matter, has to be re-recruited. That's a grind in itself. Nick Saban was, I think, like a lot of coaches, not going to have as much downtime as he would have had in the past. He's really only interested in winning right now. I mean, he's accomplished everything. What does it matter if he gets to the playoffs? I know he lobbied long and hard to get to this one because I think he and his wife knew that this was going to be his last year. But I have a theory. I think it's more than a theory. The 12-team playoff is great for the SEC because they're going to get 4 teams in. We talked about that at the closing last week, you and I. The Big Ten and the SEC are really going to be guaranteed 7 out of the 12 spots, maybe sometimes 8 of the spots. So there's no question that Alabama would be in one of those 12 spots almost every year, if not every year. The problem is, if you're the 5th seed, you're going to play 4 more games if you're going to go to win the national title. If you lose the SEC championship game, which means you got in there, you're playing 12 regular season games. You're playing the SEC championship game, and you're playing 1, 2, 3, or 4 more games. He's got to get his guys up for 17 games. I trust Nick Saban when he has a month to prepare. That's what made them so dangerous against Michigan. But if you have to go rapid fire in a 12-team playoff, Nick Saban doesn't want on his resume, well, I made the playoff 5 times, but I never won the national title. It's actually harder for Alabama to win the national title now than it used to be in a 4-team playoff. I think all that just kind of weighed on him.
I talked about the conspiracy theory, and I'm just going to say it out there lightly. And again, I'm crazy. I know that. I apologize to everyone watching and listening. But the thought process of Mr. Tepper out in Carolina, the fact that Bryce Young is his choice at quarterback, the fact that it is down back in the South, I wonder if at least he'd pick up the phone and say, hey, Nick, I knew you took a bite of the apple a handful of years ago in Miami. You went back to Bama. I got your quarterback right here, Bryce Young. We're looking for a head coach. Would he even entertain the phone call or that thought, Ron?
Well, Tepper would throw a ton of money. It would be name recognition. Part of Nick Saban would probably say, I want to do better than I did that last time. But at this, even if he's a young 72, there he goes again, right into the fire, and has to build and rebuild and be in every excruciating decision that Carolina has to make with a roster that's not that great and no draft choices. In a sense, they're without that number 1 again. They were without the number 1 last year. They'd have to build through free agency. Probably Nick Saban's going to take on a more mundane role for him, some sort of analyst or in a studio booth or whatever. What I'd like to see him do is divorce himself from the SEC and find a role within the NCAA administration to better the game as a whole. He used to be outspoken. I don't know if you probably remember this. He was outspoken with the hurry up offenses, and then he adapted to it. Remember when, he wanted, no, you can't rush. You can't have these offenses. That's unfair. And then he became better at it than the other people that did it. I think he has a lot of thoughts, and maybe a lot of good thoughts, about how the NCAA could improve its product both on a level playing field, as far as the NIL, as far as the recruiting, as far as the changing schools and the transfer portal. I'd like to see him have a more of a generic NCAA administration role, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Will Kalen DeBoer succeed in Alabama?
Tough to replace these legends. I know that's tough, but I really endorse this kind of hire, because just like Oregon went outside of their tree to go after Dan Lanning, it carves a new niche for the program. It gives them an SEC mentality. I think if Oregon stayed with the Pac-12 mentality, they would have been deficient in a couple of different areas that Dan Lanning made them better at. And I think what DeBoer could do for Alabama is just enhance the things they do well with some of the things that DeBoer does well. And he certainly has done that at Fresno and at Washington in a very short period of time. I think it makes it dangerous for the rest of the SEC to see somebody outside of the SEC join their fraternity. I think he will do well. I think his stock is high right now. The Alabama name draws people. It may not be a drop-off as much as I thought there would be, because Alabama has had drop-offs. Make no mistake about it. We've seen 5 and 6 seasons from them after losing guys, all the way back to, Bear Bryant. I mean, they lost some coaches and they got worse. Maybe they don't get worse this time. I think this is a really good hire.
Bill Belichick out as the New England Patriots head coach. Writing was on the wall. Tommy E. Curran, after week 9, after the game in Germany where the Patriots fell to Mr. Sailor's Colts and was 1-8, he said that the decision had been made. Now the Patriots win a couple games to end the season and, of course, lose to the Jets on the finale. No Black Monday, no Tuesday, no Wednesday. Then, of course, 7 a.m. on Thursday. A mutual agreement, and the locals called it a dog and pony show. It was good to see. I thought after 24 years, a third of Bill's life, it didn't end ugly. Now you can say what the locals wanted to say, Felger and Maz, he was fired, however you want to portray it. They hugged it out at 12 o'clock, and then Bob took some questions, some tough questions at 2 o'clock. Thoughts on Bill Belichick and the decision that the Patriots finally made to basically mutually part, I should say.
I think during the season, there were different percentages of would he be gone and would he not be gone, both from outside the organization and those not in the know like myself and those from inside the organization. I think it was always going to be 70, 80, 90% that he was going. But I think the deal was sealed. As soon as Pete Carroll was gone and then Nick Saban, this deal was sealed. I said, this is an easy one to make. We just saw two coaches that we didn't think were going to be fired of the same pretty much age and the same amount of time in an organization, or close to. Belichick did have more, that it was time to go. And I think the organization is excited to go this route, not because they didn't value Bill Belichick as the coach, but because the organization and their ability to kill the draft never really happened. It was like a once every 5 or 6 year period of time. There was a misjudge of talent at wide receiver consistently. I hope that the next, they're going to have to hire an offensive coordinator. And Mayo comes from the defensive side of the ball. But more importantly than that, they have to hire a GM who understands that speed is important. Wide receiver speed matched with wide receiver talent. You want to get back to the Brandon Cooks that you rented out for a couple of years, but you got to the Super Bowl with him. You want to get back to the Randy Moss that you rented out for a couple of years, but you got to the Super Bowl with him. And now this game is all about speed, and it's all about hitting on the draft in a number of different areas. This new GM is going to make or break this organization. Yes, they have a 4th place schedule, and we can talk about where Belichick will go next. But for New England's point of view, the 4th place schedule isn't good enough because the Jets and Miami, they're going to get better. So New England has to get better as well.
We talked about the conspiracy theory. Now, word on the street and the rumor is that the Atlanta Falcons are the favorites to land Mr. Belichick. Now, I have a little thought process with the Falcons. I've talked to you at length about this in the last few weeks, where the Bears own the number 1 pick. They are keeping their head coach. And if they rip the Band-Aid and they draft Caleb, Justin Fields is available for a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. Justin Fields is from the Atlanta area. Now, Bill Belichick comes in, brings in a Justin Fields, has Bijan Robinson, has Drake London, has Kyle Pitts, a defense that got better. Thoughts on Bill to Atlanta? Bill maybe bringing in Justin Fields, because that's the one piece that they're lacking is a quarterback right now.
Okay. Well, wherever Bill Belichick goes, I think he's best served as being a football-only coach, and that they have a GM in place, not only because of Bill's track record, but because I think it'll magnify what Bill does well, and that's fundamental football. Even though there was a drop-off in institutional memory on the team because the McCourty brothers have left and some other players left defensively, they were still assignment sound. When they had Matthew Judon as a pass rusher, they were still rushing the quarterback above average. Bill Belichick will put these guys in position, just like Pete Carroll. I mean, he's a teacher. He will show you the fundamentals. He'll do what he does best. So first of all, I don't know Atlanta's GM situation right off the bat. I'd also like to see Bill, though, with an established quarterback and an established wide receiver, because he just hasn't, and except for those guys, Brandon Cooks and Randy Moss, they haven't drafted a lot of great wide receivers. So I'd rather have him try to be on a team where the defense needs work, but the offense is in place already.
The true conspiracy theory, we need a little help, I think, this Sunday, and that would be Dallas getting upset by the Green Bay Packers. Jerry Jones picks up the phone, calls Bill. I do know in the Mac Jones draft, his one guy that he was all in for was Mr. Parsons. He went 3 picks in front of them. Mac Jones then falls to them. Mr. Parsons goes to Dallas. As we all know, Bill's all-time favorite NFL player he coached was Lawrence Taylor. He can't stop but smile. There is no comparison to what Mr. Taylor did on the field there. Conspiracy theory, Dallas bows out. Granted, they've won 12 games the last 3 years. Hooray for that. We can put up a banner for that, but their playoff success and their Super Bowl success, it's been 3 decades. Thoughts on Bill to Dallas?
Well, I would pick up any coach. I would pick up the phone if Dallas called, because that's a pretty good roster that he's dealing with. He has that quarterback in place, the offensive line in place, the wide receivers in place. So yeah, McCarthy will feel the pressure if they lose. Dallas's season is a dead season if they. It doesn't matter that they just beat out Philadelphia for the number 2 seed. It's a dead season if they lose this game. I know it's a long shot because organizations are feeling differently, and I don't think it'll happen, but the best fit for me with would be with the Chargers. I would like to see him with Justin Herbert, with the offensive line that they've been trying to take care of. They're going to have a new GM in place because they fired Tim Telesco. The defense could be better, and Bill, there's a lot of good players on defense. I thought they underachieved a little, and Bill Belichick would be the perfect remedy for that defense to get better. I don't think it'll happen. I think it is a good fit in Dallas if that happened, but I think it's a better fit in Los Angeles with the Chargers.
And there's so much I want to talk about, and I promise your wife I will not keep you overtime. I got to bring up 2 more names, Mike Vrabel and Mr. Harbaugh.
Okay, Harbaugh, boy, he gets antsy. He either wears out his welcome or gets antsy. But Harbaugh is rumored to the Chargers, and we don't know what the story is going to be there. It's beyond me to know what's in Harbaugh's mind sometimes, so I don't know. Mike Vrabel, I think it was a good move for both sides that he's not in Tennessee. I think he has good characteristics and somewhere he's underachieved in my eyes, but he was held back by horrible GMs in Tennessee, guys that didn't vet out their players at all. I think Mike Vrabel had a lower ceiling if he stayed in Tennessee than he does if he goes to another organization, be it Atlanta or anywhere else. So I'm all for giving him another chance, and I'm happy for him that he gets out of Tennessee.
Thoughts on Gerard Mayo, the Patriots head coach?
Well, he's been groomed by Belichick. He's seen what the room is. He's seen it from a player's standpoint and a coach's standpoint. Maybe he could be that next DeMeco Ryans, who's had a very good run in his first year. Plus, he got to prep in the San Francisco defenses. We won't know for sure. The bottom line is, I'm not as much worried defensively. I'm worried more offensively. Surround yourself with a good offensive coordinator and a good GM.
Well, before we get into the wildcard weekend, I have to ask you your thoughts on Monday night as Michigan. Good first half. Washington kind of, listen, when you play the perfect game, when Penix Jr. was quote unquote dropping dimes in the semifinals, it's really hard pressed to match that kind of. I don't want to say effort because the effort was there, but he had some open wide receivers. Michigan was able to put some pressure on him. Edwards, not one but two touchdowns when he touched the ball. Blake Corum gets two touchdowns. The defense was fabulous, especially in the second half. Your thoughts before kickoff and obviously what you saw on Monday night.
Before kickoff, my analysis said Washington would lose by 7. My simulation, I run bowl simulations, said Michigan would win by 7. There was still a part of me that showed that there was a path for Washington to win the game. But sometimes all of us are guilty of overthinking things. And the bottom line is, how was Washington's defense, who just gave up 6 yards per carry to Texas, going to stop Michigan's defense with one of the best offensive lines? Washington's was considered the best. Michigan made the Final Four in terms of the Joe Moore Award. But how was Washington going to concentrate and stop Michigan's run game, its power run game? And we shouldn't have overthought that. It was basically 200 yards right away. Edwards, I said he was 50-50 to break off a long run. Well, apparently he broke off 2 long runs, and Corum did his job. And even though early in the third, fourth quarter, Michigan's offense stalled, Washington had a chance to get back in the game. Penix at that point was beat up a little bit. He wasn't 100%, but he was missing his receivers. And that allowed Michigan to reset and recontrol the line of scrimmage. At the end of the day, the better team won. It was just a line of scrimmage thing for me.
32 minutes in. I can't thank everyone that's watching and listening. Yes, I'm finally got to wild card weekend and 2 games tomorrow, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Monday. Weather, a factor. The frozen tundra, the potential coldest game in the history of the NFL will take place Saturday night in Kansas City. Kickoff 8:15. I'm hearing temperatures of 2, 3, 4 below. Wind chill 20 to 30 below there. And then, of course, everyone has seen the scenes in Buffalo where a total is now down to 35. So before we break down the games, thoughts on the weather, thoughts on Kansas City on Saturday, thoughts on the weather in Buffalo on Sunday.
See, that's why I can't complain about playing tennis in 35, 37 degrees. You know, these people are going to say, you wimp, Ron. Kansas City, you know, the weather, it's a factor. It's not the only factor in a Miami-Kansas City game. And both teams have to play in it. And sometimes it's so extreme that you think, well, that doesn't necessarily give KC an advantage, but it's certainly not fun for Miami. And that Buffalo weather, where I've heard the winds are going to be even worse. I mean, weather, you can have high scoring games in cold weather, but in the winds that I'm hearing for Buffalo, that's just going to be an unbearable situation. It's football like they used to have with Vince Lombardi and the frozen tundra and everything like that. It's not football for the millennials, but it's football, you know, the old fashioned way.
Now, when you do your reports, when you do your simulations, when you do all of that, obviously weather is a factor. You know, I look at the Kansas City-Miami game, for instance. They already played in Germany. Kansas City already beat them. And I look at what Miami has done the last couple of weeks. They beat a Dallas team. They lost to Buffalo, which they were controlling until that punt return. That number, that under-over is only moved a half point. It's 43.5. Now, I think of 20, 30 below. I think of a team that's coming from South Beach. Yes, they've already lost to this team. It is the return of Tyreek Hill to Kansas City. How come that total is not moving, Ron?
Again, it's kind of a win factor. If there's not a win game, what I heard is Kansas City's coldest game previous to this, or one of them, was played in 10 degrees, and the wind chill was a little bit lower than that. And the game was 38-31. So I don't really have we could be talking about turnovers. We could be talking about fumbles. We probably will be broken plays. It's hard for defenses to stay with offenses if they're able to, without wins, to throw downfield, because you slip once and then the guy's gone for a long gainer. So I didn't have really an opinion on this total. I certainly understand the Buffalo total moving down, 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 but I'm okay with the KC Miami total. I don't have an opinion on it.
Cleveland, Houston, my true number was a pick with a 41. Cleveland now 2 with a 44.5. I woke up on Monday and I said to myself, my dark horse in the AFC is the Browns. I love what Flacco's done. Defenses travel. A win in Houston gets a great storyline as Flacco returns to face the Baltimore Ravens. I saw this number tip to 2.5. I saw some sharp heavy play and a line back to 2 now. Thoughts on Stroud versus Flacco, D'Amico Ryan versus Stefanski?
It even touched a soft 3 for a little while earlier in the week in this game, primarily because Cleveland not that long ago blitzed Houston. They had a 36-7 lead in that game. I know Stroud wasn't playing, but the Houston defense was playing, and they have to play better. That's what we have to watch in this game, because Joe Flacco's been sacked 8 times total in 5 games. So that savvy veteran presence that he has, he knows how to get rid of the ball and when to get rid of the ball. This is going to be up to Houston's defense. I know it's first time for the coach, first time for the quarterback. I'm not as worried about that. I'm worried more about how their defense plays against Cleveland.
Any lean there right now? 2 with a 44.5, expecting some points. I mean, basic numbers here. First one to 24 wins this game. Is there any edge, or is this just a popcorn game?
I'm like you. I would have set the number closer to pick 'em. So when the line touched 3 briefly, that was the side that I would pick and that I picked. I'm not overly optimistic at anything under 3. It was just kind of a value kind of thing. I think it'll be a fascinating game to watch, and I don't feel like I have an edge.
The night game we talked about, Miami and Kansas City. Initially, I have a true number of KC -1 with a 44. We're at 43.5 with a 4.5. I think this line opened around 3.5. The Publix has pushed it to 4.5. Currently 5 on DraftKings. Your initial thought of this game?
This is a hard one to use power ratings on because the teams are different. The teams are just vastly different. Look at it from Miami's standpoint. They've lost 3 starters in the last 2 weeks. 2 to injury last week, 1 Bradley Chubb to injury the week before. Xavier Howard, if he doesn't play, that's 4 people that are out due to injury, all on the defensive side of the ball. Now, all those rest differentials that you and I talked about that were in against Kansas City, because 6 weeks in a row, it was a terrible schedule. And a lot of us took advantage of that. Kansas City was going to get everybody's best shot, 14 days versus 6 days. Well, the tables turned now. Miami had 6 days. They played on Sunday. Now they're playing on Saturday. Kansas City essentially had a bye week. Nobody played. There were a couple of receivers that played, made some stats, and that was about it. They finally got to reset. They're at home. They got Reed with the 14 days. It's just not a fair fight in this particular case. So I took those 3s and 3.5s early. I like Kansas City to win. Extreme weather is actually scary because it brings in more variables. Maybe Kansas City drops the ball too. But other than that, it's just a bad spot for Miami.
Pittsburgh, Buffalo, 41 with a 7.5 now at circa 33.5 with a 9.5. I think Buffalo, if you put a gun to my head right now, I think Buffalo will play Kansas City next week. I think Buffalo will win that game. And I think Buffalo and Josh Allen can put the fear of God into Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think if Buffalo could sign up to have the ball with 2 minutes and Josh Allen, I think I would sign up for that. But the more I think about this, Ron, and I see the pictures on social media of what this game brings, we're talking Mason Rudolph, who was third on the depth chart. This was before Pickett and Trubisky. But Mason Rudolph has woken this offense up. But in these conditions, they have a two-headed monster. They have Najee Harris. They have Jalen Warren. The line creeped to 10.5. It's now down to 9.5. Am I outthinking this? I think Buffalo wins the game. But is that 9.5 going to come into play?
Well, I like the way you set it up. Buffalo can win at KC, because that would be the premise for why, even though I think there's a negative situation going on with Pittsburgh, maybe a couple of negative situations, Buffalo can't afford to look ahead. As I've said on a couple of other shows, Buffalo may be exhaling now because they've been in playoff mode ever since they were 6-6. If they're looking ahead to KC, they're making a mistake for the very reasons you mentioned, because Najee Harris will keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. And if it's a close game and they go away, if Buffalo deviates from running the ball with Cook, that creates more instances where Josh Allen could put the ball in harm's way. I think Buffalo should win this game, and they may win this game by margin. Another crazy cold weather game. We don't know how Mason Rudolph will do with this. I cannot endorse Pittsburgh because I will not play a Pittsburgh team without TJ Watt in the lineup, because it's just documented how his presence just makes defenses better, because you have to guard against him. It frees up other people. Highsmith is really taking advantage of that. So I'm the only thing I'm worried about, and it may be something I shouldn't even worry about, is that Buffalo, who's been all in all these 5 weeks with all the emotion of the punt return and everything last week, when do they take a deep breath? And is that deep breath right now?
And that's what I'm afraid of, because I remember last year, like it was yesterday, when Joe Burrow came into town, not the same weather and conditions, but a snowy first quarter, second quarter, and I blinked and it was 7-0. I was like, oh, don't worry, Buffalo's going to come back. Then I think it was 14-0, 14-3. It was lights out. Now, I'm not comparing Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase with Joe Mixon to what Pittsburgh is, and especially, TJ Watt. But like you said, the last 5 weeks have been must wins. Now they're home and they know they're one win away to most likely, or maybe facing Kansas City, a game that it's very easily to take that deep breath, said, hey, we got here. Almost like Alabama, when after week 4, they sheeted, they got to the championship. Granted, it was an overtime. It's apples and oranges here. But I think there is a little breath of fresh air, like, we made it, guys. Now we're at home. If someone goes into Baltimore and wins, we're hosting.
Yeah. It's just human nature. I mean, how high can you get for so long before something affects you, differently? The body gets a little different. We got here. It's just human.
Green Bay and Dallas, I had an 8 with a 49.5, now 7 with a 50.5. I expect a lot of points to be scored here. Dallas, for the last 2 months, averaging almost 40 points a game, seeing some money trickle in on Green Bay, a healthy Aaron Jones. Jordan Love has taken that next step. Now, obviously, the availability of his wide receivers. We've seen Jaden Reed excel at this point. Flip side, Dak to CD is probably the best combination going. Parsons on the other side. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I can't get out of my head the fact that anything can happen in this game, where you may have to look at alternate lines, where if you like Green Bay, they have a chance to win because they can go toe-to-toe. They're not going to change their game plan. Jordan Love's going to air it out. Dallas has a risk-reward secondary. Aaron Jones, like you mentioned, is running healthy right now. That's really great for diversifying their offense. They may even get Watson back. And even if he's a decoy, they have to guard against him being that decoy. On the flip side, Dallas could win this game by 25 or more. I've seen Dak in the playoffs do very, very well. I've seen him have almost perfect passer ratings. I know they have the talent. They also can do some run pass offense options. They have diversity there. I like unsung hero is tight end Ferguson, who's done a very good job in his role. He, was seamless how he transitioned to the number one tight end role. And, Parsons is a game wrecker. Therefore, since I have no idea what's going to happen, I agree with you. I just think points are going to be scored. So I think we're looking at a high scoring game.
The darling of the day, the Rams at the Lions. Initially a 3 with a 52. I got a 3 minus 15 cents at Circa telling me the next move will go to 3.5 with a 51.5. What a story. The return of Mr. Stafford to Detroit. And then there's McVay looking on the other side of the ball with Jared Goff. A team with, in August, a 5.5 team total over under. I laughed. I was like, oh my God, they're giving away Monday. There's no way the Rams are getting the 6 or 7 wins here. Offensive rookie of the year, Puka. Cooper Kupp's healthy. Karen Williams, who the hell? It looks like that was Marshall Faulk or Todd Gurley back there. Aaron Donald on the other side. Such a fascinating game. I hope this is my dog of the day, dog of the weekend, but it sounds like it could be a public trendy dog of the day. Talk me off the ledge and tell me the Lions roll.
First, let me fake pat myself on the back because I got the Rams under 7.5 and I lost. So, I took it right at openers. So here's my loser, guys, and well-deserved for the Rams. So congratulations to them. No problem with that at all. Fascinating game on so many levels. And the beauty of sports handicapping and sports wagering is you don't have to wager on every game. And there's a very good likelihood that I won't wager on this game. If the Rams tip to 3.5, I'm supposed to look at that side, but there's a playoff indicator that I use year after year that favors Detroit. That is a pretty good success rate. So I have reasons for each side. I'm fascinated by the matchup. I'm curious as to the emotion that Jared Goff is going to have in this game because he knows McVay's on the other side. They had heart-to-heart talks. He wants to prove McVay made a mistake in letting him go. Right now, McVay's only mistake that he said out loud is that I made a mistake in how I let him go. He didn't say he made a mistake in letting him go. And then on the Stafford side, will emotions get the best of him or will he just play his game? We know now it's been reinforced that when he's healthy, he's not only a top 10 quarterback, he's threatening right now with the current structure of quarterbacks, a top 5 quarterback. And what I said on an earlier show, and this is probably the tipping hand for me as to why I might stay on the sidelines, is that when the Lions drafted running back Gibbs, and everybody said, you got to play him, you got to play him, you got to play him. The Lions didn't play him that much in the first few weeks. And I kept telling people, this isn't about playing him in week 5. This is about playing him in week 17, 18, and the playoffs when it matters and when you want a fresh guy who doesn't play 17, 18 games a year, but now he's in the NFL. I think they did things just right by Gibbs, and he's as fresh as running backs can be right now, and he can be a difference maker in the game.
I 100% agree. And I, in my high stakes fantasy drafts, wasn't but paying the tax on Jamar Gibbs at that 2-3 turn. I was able to get David Montgomery in the 6th and 7th round, who was the goal line vulture, who was the bell cow till he got hurt. And once he got hurt, Jamar Gibbs started to flex his muscles and then take over in that 65-35 split. So I love where your eyes are there. And the last game on Monday night, Philly at Tampa, I had a true number of Philly 1.5 with a 43. It is spiked to 3 and 43.5. And I got to be open and honest here with you, Ron. I saw a 2.5 number on Monday, and I was licking my chops. I'm like, listen, guys, I was born at night, not last night. I was like, you're going to give me the Bucks at 2.5 with a disgruntled A.J. Brown, unsure of Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, who hasn't thrown a ball all week, a defense that is Swiss cheese, a back end second to none, and the line goes to 3. And now I'm like, all right, guys, you got me. As much as I love everything on the Tampa side, it's Eagles or bust for me this week. I'm not taking the banana in the tailpipe here, Ron.
Yeah, so everybody like yourself that understands the game and is knowledgeable about the game has the same feelings that I do. How can you possibly make this line 3? You want us to take the +3. What are we missing kind of situation? Because I've already dismissed the fact that this isn't Philly of 2022. This is Philly of 2023. We're missing a lot of information before we enter this game. We don't know the health of either quarterback right now. Baker Mayfield, he's a gamer. We know he's going to go, but what is he? 30%, 40%? When Jalen Hurts is one loss away from announcing that he's having surgery on some body part because he hasn't been healthy this year. I don't know the A.J. Brown story, but it gets kind of weird. Maybe he just wants to focus and he took himself off social media, or maybe he's just like many other wide receivers in the NFL. I took the 3, and the reason I took the 3 is because I didn't think it would ever go higher. And if we heard news that was really negative about Philadelphia, I'd have tremendous value and wiggle room and so on, that line would go back to where it should have been, which is closer to pick 'em. Now, if the line stays 3 all week and we get to Monday and it's Monday afternoon and I'm sitting with 3, I'm going to be worried because I just think they want you. The bookmakers want you to take 3. So I feel like I have value, and I'm the most scared of this game as any other.
I am truly believe exactly what you said. And for me, reading the market, reading the numbers, and I know I've been taught a long, long time ago to trust and respect the open number. Numbers open for a reason, and they know which side they're going to get, and they set that number there to get what they wanted. And just with the MASH unit, the injuries, the disgruntled A.J. Brown, Sirianni coming on social media, potentially on the hot seat. It's just a hot mess. And I think at the end of the day and Monday night, we're going to see 2022 Eagles. Not that they're going to run the gamut, not that they're going to win the NFC, but I think we're going to see at least some part of that Eagles team that we knew and loved in 2022.
Yeah, the odds makers only have to set 6 full game odds, 6 games only this week, no college, no other stuff, and 6 totals. And weather dependent totals obviously do change a lot, but they've got, their lines, they perceive them as being very sharp, and it's hard to beat them. When they opened Kansas City 3.5, even the power ratings probably supported a little bit lower number, but they knew they had to open at least 3. And then there was this avalanche of money that came on Kansas City because the circumstances are so one-sided. But when they opened when they opened Philadelphia at 2.5, I think they had a plan in mind, and that's the scary part.
Before we go to your closing thoughts, and I give you that nice 7-yard button hook, we got the bracket set up. We know what's going to transpire. Last year, I was sitting in October, November with a Cincinnati 13-1, a 49ers 14-1, and then we were staring at the brackets, and I needed to get us covered with the 2 favorites, which were Philly and which was Kansas City. And what we did was we grabbed Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP at 6-1, and we grabbed Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP at 4-1 in case the chalk came in and they faced each other. No guarantees, but they faced each other. And of course, Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl MVP and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Any nuggets, any thought process? If I said, Ron, who's winning the NFC? Who's winning the AFC? Who's going to the Super Bowl? Do you have any of those tickets hidden that you'd like to reveal to all the people that love you so much here on a Friday?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't as much forward thinking this year as in other years. I think the last true year I got involved was when Tennessee was the number 1 seed, but my power ratings had them 14th best in the NFL. So we had a real shot at getting rid of that number 1 seed. San Francisco, in my opinion, is the best team in the NFL, so it's hard to go against them. Baltimore is the best or second best and challenging. Certainly they beat San Francisco. They are, let's say, 1A, 1B in regular season number 1 power rating, but they still have something to prove in the playoff. So if you're looking to unseat one of the number 1 seeds, you'd have to look at the AFC race. You mentioned that you thought that Buffalo could beat Kansas City, and certainly Buffalo would be hosting Kansas City. But if Kansas City gets it together against Miami after they've had a chance to reset, I think Kansas City probably has the best value because they've been there before. They've done that. They would be back in a title game if they played Baltimore in that particular title game. Maybe they have the best value to unseat Baltimore. Even though I would say Baltimore is a better team, I don't think they have value in terms of holding a ticket on Baltimore. The only tickets I would recommend at this point would be either a San Francisco ticket or a Kansas City ticket.
And I love where your eyes are here. And obviously next Friday, we will regroup. We will talk about the wild card games. We'll talk about the weather, and we'll talk about which maybe coaching changes, departures, or who is there. But as always, what we like to do here, Ron, is we end the show with your closing thoughts.
I think we covered a lot of ground today. There's so much coaches and so much other. I don't really have any closing thoughts. I do think this is one of the best wild card, we'll call it super wild card weeks that I've seen. Fascinating storylines in most of them. Weather is going to be interesting and so on. I hope for no more injuries. I'd rather have the best teams on the playing field decide it and not late injuries. Hope refereeing does not get involved in terms of whether a team wins or loses, or whether any of our listeners loses a bet or wins a bet is not because of refereeing, but because the right team won. You mentioned coaches, and I'm looking forward to that. But the bottom line is, I'm actually looking forward to who's hired as GMs over the next couple of weeks. I really think that's going to be the driving force. We've started to see low positive become medium positive correlations between draft success and playoff status, and lack of draft success and playoff status. And the teams that have been in the top 3 and 1, or the bottom 3 and the 1, not the middle of the group, but the top group and the bottom group, we've really seen the fact that there's a correlation. And if you have a bad draft, it's starting to translate a little bit into not having a great season. I'm looking forward to some GM talk coming up.
Well, and I am so super excited. Of course, the playoffs, the Super Bowl, but what is going to transpire with the OTAs, and of course, the draft talk leading up to the draft, and kind of curious on, because I know you'll have a sheet a mile long of potential odds and how we can maybe cash some tickets during the draft. So as always, the scroll has been going the whole time. You can follow Ron at Ron A Sports. And Ron, as we close here, tell everyone where they can find all your work.
Well, we're finally winding down. I can't go 4 seasons like you, Jeff. Sorry. I could just go 1 season, although, it's 1 full season with the draft and everything else. I'll have some more articles up on Wager Talk. Not sure when the next show with Chris will be. It may be next Friday. It may be live in Las Vegas on Tuesday or Wednesday, because I go to Vegas next week. So I get to visit the city that owes me a little bit of cash. I'll collect there, but winding down, but we'll do these shows and we'll have a couple of articles up and wind down.
Want to give a shout out, of course, to Ron. Give a shout out to Billy Hewlin. Give a shout out to Marty. Russell, if you're in the crowd today, shout out to you. Everyone, it's the weekend. And as I like to close, don't be the pizza guy when wagering today or at all this weekend. Try to fade the public if you can. Be a little contrarian. Always stick and stay in your lanes. Always remember there's tomorrow, there's next week and next month. If you had a bad day today, you had a bad day tomorrow. That doesn't mean you're going to have a bad day on Monday. And always remember, Monday is the start of a new week, a fresh start. So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Mr. Ron Marmolevsky at Ron A Sports, we wish everyone a blessed day, a blessed weekend. Enjoy Wild Card weekend, and we will see you soon.